Alan Watts' shocking claim, humanity is a giant hoax. We wake each day convinced that our truest self is the character we perform, the worker, the lover, the thinker, and that the more skillfully we play our roles, the more real we become. But what if everything we take for granted about who we are is an elaborate illusion? Alan Watts once provocatively suggested that humanity itself is a giant hoax, a shared dream we all keep believing without question. Imagine billions of people across every culture participating in a grand collective hallucination, buying identities like clothing, guarding positions as if survival depended on them, and mistaking the shadow of their thoughts for the substance of reality. In the first minute of this exploration, I invite you to feel the seismic shift of waking up from that dream. Notice how your chest rises with each breath, how your mind scrambles for familiar landmarks, the safe certainties of who you should be. We set out on a profound intellectual journey to expose the artifice behind every label we cling to, the invisible scripts running our lives, and the liberating power that dawns when we recognize the grandest illusion of all. This is not an exercise in nihilism, it's a call to radical awakening. Clear expectations: by the end of this video you will see your identity as a construct, understand the forces that sustain the hoax, and learn practical strategies to reclaim authenticity. We'll traverse the stages of self-deception, confront the existential void at the heart of our assumptions, and discover how genuine presence emerges when the smoke of illusion clears. You might feel disoriented, even threatened, as the pillars of your self-image begin to wobble. That tension is fertile ground for transformation. Ask yourself, what happens when you remove every label: your nationality, your profession, your past failures and future ambitions? What remains? That raw awareness is the starting point of genuine freedom, and it lies hidden beneath the convincing masquerade of personality. Swiftly, we accelerate into the terrain of philosophical inquiry. Consider the paradox of memory. Our stories about the past shape our present beliefs, yet memory itself is notoriously unreliable, a patchwork of impressions rather than a faithful record. If the foundation of identity is built on shaky recollections, then what stands on firmer ground? Watts would point to the ever-unfolding now, the fluid river of experience that refuses to be bottled into a concept. As you watch this video, notice how your mind instinctively tries to pin down each fleeting insight, as if capturing a bird in flight. That impulse to own experience is the hoax at work, the belief that we can possess life rather than participate in it. We'll explore how our relentless quest for permanence through monuments, social media legacies, or intellectual achievements only cements the illusion of control and deepens our separation from the living moment.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
At the midpoint of this section, pause and reflect on a simple everyday sign: your smartphone's constant buzz. We perceive it as information and connection, yet it conditions our attention, reshaping our brain's reward circuitry so that we become Pavlovian responders to digital prompts. This is the microcosm of humanity's hoax. We mistake external stimuli for identity, allowing algorithms to script our desires and distract us from deeper questions. Watts likened modern life to a carnival mirror. Everything is distorted to sell us the next distraction. In recognizing this, we take the first step toward dismantling the machinery of deception. What if your most profound self lies not in the curated feed, but in the unedited silence that follows each notification? That silence is a portal into authenticity. We have set the stage to expose the collective dream we all inhabit, to challenge the seductive confidence of our self-made narratives, and to invite you into a space of unguarded presence. The next revelation will dig into the mechanisms that sustain the hoax, the psychological, social, and technological scripts we obey without realizing it, and show you how to reclaim the authorship of your life. The machinery behind the mask, exploring the systems that perpetuate the hoax beneath the shimmering facade of our individual lives, lies a vast machinery, psychological, cultural, and technological, that tirelessly reinforces the collective illusion of selfhood. We begin with the architecture of the mind, the ego. From infancy, we learn to stitch together a narrative tapestry, preferences, traumas, ambitions that we mistake for our true self. Yet this tapestry is woven from borrowed threads: parental expectations, peer pressures, societal norms. Consider how easily you adopt beliefs simply because they're repeated by authority figures or echoed ikasegears of academia. I remember the moment I realized that many of my convictions around success were not born from personal insight, but from the advertisements and textbooks I consumed. That realization was like stepping behind a velvet curtain and seeing the gears turning in a clockwork theater. The first step in dismantling the hoax is to interrogate your internal script. Which thoughts do you unquestioningly accept as you, and which arise from a collective soundtrack playing just beyond your awareness? But the ego alone does not sustain the ruse. We are further ensnared by the narratives of culture. Language itself is a system of signs that shape our perception of reality. We call something failure a success, right or wrong. Yet these are labels assigned by groups who want to maintain cohesion, often at the cost of individual inquiry. Look at our educational systems. They reward conformity to standardized tests more than curiosity or critical thinking. We earn diplomas by mastering pre-approved answers, then re-enter society believing that credentials equal competence. In my own journey, after graduating with honors, I felt both elation and a hollow uncertainty. Had I actually learned to think, or merely learned to recite? Cultural institutions, schools, corporations, media are complicit in this grand hoax, producing citizens who accept the status quo rather than challenge it. What if the curriculum you followed was less about discovering truth and more about perpetuating existing power structures? Technology, the most modern limb of this machinery, accelerates the deception. Algorithms curate our news feeds, reinforcing our biases by feeding us only what we like, creating filter bubbles that trap us in self-referential echo chambers. Every click, every pause, every share is logged, analyzed, and monetized, shaping our desires to keep us scrolling. I've conducted social experiments, going days without checking my phone, and noticing the surge of freedom that followed, how my attention expanded beyond the glow of notifications to the texture of real life around me. Yet no sooner did I return to my device than I felt the subtle friction of my own autonomy being corralled by code. The digital realm promises connection and information, but often delivers distraction and conformity. We must become digital literates of a deeper kind, questioning the invisible hand that nudges us towards certain content, buying certain products, adopting certain beliefs. Do you remember the last time you read an article in full before sharing it? Do you pause to ask who benefits from my engagement here? These systems, psychological, cultural, technological, form an interlocking assembly line that manufactures the hoax of humanity. They condition us to live out pre-designed plays, seldom granting a moment's respite for genuine self-discovery. Yet the machinery does not have absolute power. Awareness is the chink in its armor. By practicing metacognition, observing your own thought processes, you begin to slow the machine's turning cogs. Practical life advice: schedule daily deception audits. For 10 minutes each morning, free write every belief you hold about yourself, your work, and the world. Then challenge each one. Where did this idea originate? Is it serving me or binding me? At the end of the day, conduct a media fast for an hour. No phone, no news, no email. Notice how your energy and creativity shift when you step outside the machine's flow. These small acts of rebellion accumulate, gradually unveiling the emptiness behind the mask and revealing the living consciousness that was always there. As we prepare to move from diagnosis to cure, we confront the question, once we see the machinery, can we ever truly participate in society without re-entangling ourselves? The answer lies not in total withdrawal but in conscious engagement, choosing which systems to support, which to transform, and which to leave behind. In the next part, we will chart the path toward liberation, showing how to build a life anchored in authenticity rather than illusion, guiding you step by step through the labyrinth of prescriptions and expectations toward the freedom that awaits beyond the hoax. The liberation path, breaking free from the collective deception. To escape the great hoax, we must first recognize that liberation is not an event but a practice, a series of conscious choices that recalibrate our relationship with self, society, and technology. I propose 3 intertwined gateways to freedom: noticing, naming, and navigating. First, noticing. Cultivate the habit of observing the impulses that drive you, your compulsions to check your phone, to defend your opinions, to perform for approval. When I began journaling each urge as it arose, I feel the pull to refresh. I crave praise for this post. I tighten at disagreement. I discovered the puppet strings guiding my behavior. This simple act of bearing witness unravels their power. Can you recall a moment today when you acted on autopilot? Then pause to ask, why am I doing this? Second, naming. Once you catch a compulsion, label its origin. Is it fear of missing out, desire for status, or pressure to conform? Naming transforms vague discomfort into actionable insight. For example, if you notice a surge of anxiety before posting an opinion online, name it. This is fear of judgment. Naming doesn't eliminate the feeling, but it defangs it, giving you the space to choose a different response. I experimented with this during heated debates, silently naming each emotional spike: angst, shame, rage, and found that rather than being swept away, I could address concerns calmly or simply step back without internal collapse. Third, navigating. With awareness and naming in hand, chart a course through the systems that once enslaved you. Decide which cultural scripts to uphold, which to modify, and which to abandon outright. Perhaps you honor the value of community, but reject the notion that success is measured by titles and salaries. Or you appreciate technology's convenience yet refuse to let algorithms dictate your attention. In my own life, I replaced morning social media scrolling with a 5-minute gratitude practice, reclaiming the first moments of my day for centering rather than comparison. I also instituted algorithm-free weekends, time spent in nature, in conversation, in creative flow, so that I could test who I am outside the curated digital mirror. What small ritual could you introduce that shifts your allegiance from the machine to your own authenticity? These gateways do not require isolation but deliberate integration. You don't quit society, you engage on your own terms. You don't abandon technology, you wield it as a tool rather than as a master. This shift from passive participant to conscious architect rewires your neural pathways, creating new habits aligned with presence and purpose. It's akin to learning a new language. At first, the grammatical structures feel foreign, but with practice they become second nature, reshaping how you think and feel. What language of liberation are you ready to learn today? As you forge this path, you will encounter friction, friends who misunderstand your new priorities, internal resistance urging you back into old patterns, moments of doubt that question whether freedom is even possible. These are not signs of failure, but initiation rites, evidence that you're venturing beyond the familiar borders of the collective dream. Watts taught that the boundary between the known and the unknown is where life truly happens. Lean into that edge. When discomfort arises, ask, is this the invitation to grow? Your discomfort is the compass pointing toward deeper authenticity. Practical life advice emerges organically from this framework. Create a declaration of conscious engagement, a written manifesto of the values you choose to live by, distinct from the values marketed to you. Mine began, I choose connection over consumption, creativity over conformity, presence over performance. Post it where you can see it every morning. When faced with a choice, hold it up like a lodestar. I discovered that this declaration streamlined my decisions. No longer did I waver over invitations or obligations. I simply held each choice against my personal manifesto. Through noticing, naming, and navigating, you dismantle the hoax's scaffolding and reclaim the thrill of self-authorship. You move from passive character in a scripted play to conscious author of your own narrative. This path is neither easy nor linear, but it leads to a deeper sense of aliveness and alignment. You will feel doubt, but also exhilaration. You will face resistance, but also discover wells of creativity you never knew existed. The Great Awakening, crafting a new human story through conscious choice. We stand at a threshold of possibility, where the old hoax of humanity dissolves and a new narrative emerges, one we author with every choice we make. Having exposed the machinery of illusion and practiced liberation through noticing, naming, and navigating, we now embrace creation as our highest act. Imagine humanity as a collective canvas, each individual brushstroke shaping the greater masterpiece. What will your stroke look like? Will it echo the patterns of past generations, or will it introduce fresh hues born of awakened awareness? Creation begins in the intimate workshop of your daily life. Every encounter becomes an opportunity to rewrite the script of humanity. When you greet another with genuine presence rather than procedural politeness, you plant seeds of authenticity. When you choose honesty over convenience, you remind us all that truth is possible. I've found that the smallest acts, a thoughtful question to a friend, a moment of kindness to a stranger, ripple outward in ways we rarely predict. These ripples are the building blocks of a new human story, one grounded in consciousness rather than compulsion. What ripple will you send into the pond today? To craft this story consciously, we must build new rituals that anchor our intentions. Begin each morning with a minute of unspoken commitment. In silence, affirm the qualities you wish to embody: courage, compassion, curiosity. Write them down if it helps, turning ephemeral thoughts into tangible reminders. I experimented with this practice and noticed a subtle shift. Decisions that once felt stressful now seemed like invitations to live in alignment with my own values. Over time, these micro-commitments coalesce into macro-transformations, reshaping not only your life, but the ecosystem of relationships and communities you touch. Communities themselves become laboratories of the new human narrative. Seek out or form circles of like-minded explorers, people willing to question assumptions, share vulnerabilities, and co-create. In these gatherings, the old scripts lose their power. Instead, curiosity and mutual respect fuel genuine innovation. I co-founded a small discussion group where we alternated between sharing personal insights and experimenting with collaborative projects, from community gardens to open mic storytelling nights. Each effort reinforced the understanding that a liberated individual is only half of the equation. True transformation arises when many of us awaken together. As we weave our individual and collective intentions, the question of legacy naturally arises. What story will future generations discover when they look back on our era? Will they see a planet of disconnected consumers or a vibrant tapestry of conscious creators? The answer lies in your hands and mine. Every purchase we make, every piece of media we consume, every conversation we hold, these are votes cast for the world we wish to live in. I challenge you now, what are the top 3 votes you cast this week, and how could you realign them with your highest vision for humanity's next chapter? This great awakening also requires humility. We must recognize that no single person or group holds the complete blueprint. The viable path emerges from dialogue among diverse voices: science and spirituality, art and technology, tradition and innovation. In practical terms, engage with perspectives outside your echo chamber. Read a book from an unfamiliar culture, attend a lecture on a field outside your expertise, or simply listen deeply to someone whose life story differs from your own. These experiences expand your palette of possibilities and prevent the new narrative from replicating the old pitfalls. Finally, sustain this creative endeavor through gratitude and celebration. Acknowledge each step, no matter how small, as a milestone on our shared odyssey. When you complete a personal challenge or witness a shift in your community's dynamics, pause to honor the moment. Gratitude is the fuel that powers sustained evolution. It reminds us why we engage in this labor of love, anchoring us in the joy that emerges when we co-author reality. So here we stand, having dismantled the greatest hoax of identity and awakened to the freedom that sprouts in the fertile ground of presence. The final question I leave you with is this: if you could whisper one new story into the collective ear of humanity, what would it be? Let your answer guide your thoughts, words, and actions in the days to come. In crafting that story, you become not just a witness to history, but a vital author of humanity's next great chapter.